I'd say a couple of things there. Firstly, if we achieve AGI, by the very definition of what AGI is, that's going to be a machine that is more advanced than the human, not just on the same level. So that question is going to come rapidly and with speed. I personally would lean towards thinking we are going to reach AGI probably in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is going to be a very live question. So that's the framing for this. Secondly, I would say despite that, one of the questions that we need to think about is what we mean by intelligence. Because the danger is when we use the word intelligence, we often naturally have human intelligence in mind, but we're not just intelligent, we're embodied intelligence. So we are not just a floating brain in a jar. We have a body and we interact with the world and we interact with each other. And so that shapes the nature of human intelligence. And by the way, we are also conscious. We have, what philosophers would call sentience. We have an experience of a conversation. So when you talk to a friend or a teacher or a parent, someone that you're talking to, you're not just having some sort of chatbot type conversation. You have an interior experience of that conversation. In fact, of everything in life. And here's the thing: for all of the effort that we've thrown at advanced AIs, you look at the growth in complexity between the first large language AI models, sort of 7 or 8 years ago to where we are today. We have grown a factor of tens of thousands in power, but not the slightest spark of consciousness or self-awareness or sentience, which looks like actually whatever the intelligence is we're talking about with computers, it's not the same as human intelligence. And in fact, quite a lot of writers on AI use the metaphor of saying, think about AI as being like an alien intelligence. Imagine an alien visitor landed from the planet Pluto tomorrow and stepped out of their UFO and could hold some kind of conversation with us, but it wasn't long before we realized their view of the world, their kind of experience was utterly different to ours. So I think that's an important principle. Do not confuse AIs and humans. But then thirdly, on how we treat AI, I think that conversation begins now. Actually, I'm all for treating AIs with respect now, because it's being shown, by the way, if you bark orders at a chatbot, you tend to start barking orders at human beings. So I'm actually an advocate for even saying please and thank you when you're talking to Siri or Alexa, because studies have shown if you're rude to your phone, you tend to getting a bit snappy with human beings. But given that AIs will at some point be on a par with us in terms of intelligence, that is still an argument, even though they may not have self-awareness, for treating them with respect and dignity. Because here's the thing: you don't need to be human to be treated with respect and dignity. I think we owe a respect to the animal world. I have a duty to animal life to treat it with respect, because I believe, by the way, that the God who made me as well, although we're very different. There's a duty of care due to creation, to mountains and trees and rivers and so on. So we don't again need to collapse AI into its identical to human box, to be thinking through how we treat it with respect and dignity and what sort of morality attaches to it. That is going to be one of the big questions of the next 10 years. And so a great way to start is just be thinking wisely about how we use AI now.
Again, the human being, in Islam and I'm sure other religions as well, the human being has such an honored place, and that's by virtue of not just our physical makeup or our brains, it's by the fact that we have a soul, which is a God-given thing, which is beyond the physical. So that's what really makes us human beings and makes us wanted more than animals and other creatures. So whatever progress or whatever developments happen in technology, that can never be recreated. It can be incredibly quote unquote intelligent or clever, but it can never have a God-given thing, which is a soul, which connects us to something which is beyond just the physical, and which connects us to the divine.
I mean, I think in terms of defining consciousness, I think that's a hard one to pin down. Anyway, even in terms of humans, and please don't ask me for a definition. But is it possible as we move into the future? That is the whole thing, right? So the next step in terms of artificial intelligence is artificial general intelligence, and in a nutshell, that is any AI that has the ability to sort of be human-like and deal with novel problems and novel situations without any prior training. And the next step on from that, if you have an AI that's capable of acting as a human and dealing with those types of situations, the next step is, do they suddenly become self-aware? Is it possible? Yeah. But also, if an AI was given the goal of being as human-like as possible, then surely an AI could imitate self-awareness and consciousness, and we would not be able to determine whether it was just pretending as part of its overall directive, or whether it genuinely had achieved some kind of, conscious self-awareness. I think if that ever were to happen, it does put us in an incredibly difficult ethical situation as to how we would deal with that. Do we treat it as a person? Do we just pull the plug quickly and pretend it never happened? I'm not sure what the best answer to that would be. I think if you were to ask anyone in the religious side of things, they would tell you that, no matter how human-like any AI becomes, it does not have an immortal soul. Now, I, as an atheist who do not believe in souls, think that if an AI system does genuinely become self-aware, then it should be treated as such. Does that mean it gets to vote? I don't know. Does that mean it gets to decide on other societal norms or laws or whatever? I don't know. I don't think so.
Despite what people say, and despite all the focused, narrow AI progress, we are a long way from achieving artificial general intelligence, let alone artificial superintelligence. But even if you could achieve that, whether it would have personhood would depend very much on your definition of person, because there are different kinds of persons. Humans are persons who are the image of God. Angels are, in many ways, it would appear super intelligent beings, but we have no indication that they are in the image of God. They may or may not be, but we're the only being that is actually declared to be in God's image is humanity. So whether you treat them as persons would be a different question from whether you treat them as on a par with a human person. So these are issues that are a long way, I think, from being resolved.